Hi, I'm Rich Slayton, and this is Inside the Play, the very first CRL Asia edition, where we're going to go into this matchup between X-Bowmaster, the great deck creator, and one of the best hog cycle players, maybe the best on the entire planet, Jack. Now, this is a fun video because they run the exact same matchup twice in a row. We start game 2 with X-Bowmaster running the deck on the left, which he told me was a direct snipe, a counter to Jack's entire Hog Rider based deck pool. And they got the exact matchup they wanted here in game 2. Now, before we go into the rest of it, remind you that Hog Rider at tournament standard does 264 damage per hit. That's an important number. We'll talk about that later. So again, X-Bowmaster built this deck and practiced it with his team specifically for Jack's Hog Cycle deck pool and specifically for the matchup that you see. Things start off and X-Bowmaster super happy, easy King Tower activation, he's in a great spot, Jack's not happy. Now we know that King Tower is a good thing against Hog Rider, but let's talk about precisely why. Of course, you probably already know that you can pull a Hog Rider to the center and completely counter it with Tornado once you have King activated. But maybe more important is that an untouched Hog Rider will get 7 hits without King Tower activated, but only 4 with. So that's a 3-hit difference. And this is part of why Hog Rider has a 5% win rate difference against Tornado versus not Tornado. Thank you, by the way, to our friends at Royale API for giving that specific stat. Now, it doesn't dictate everything, but it is a valuable stat. So here's where X-Bowmaster makes his first big mistake that he told me about, and it's the Royal Giant behind King Tower. He sees Hog Rider is now out of cycle, he can't be punished, so he goes ahead. Now watch his hands here on the left-hand side. He holds his hand on the phone, waits for Jack to commit to the left-hand lane with the Ice Golem, putting 2 more elixir on that left-hand side, and that's when X-Bowmaster goes ahead and releases his hand, drops the Royal Giant, and starts pushing on the right-hand side. This is a really aggressive play. Going Royal Giant behind King Tower in single elixir is usually kind of a no-no. But X-Bowmaster has the matchup, has exactly what he wants, has tons of counters to his opponent's deck, so he goes ahead and does it. But this is the first of things that goes wrong. Now you see here he plays the Goblin Cage and the Mega Minion left-hand side to deal with the Musketeer and the Ice Golem. Right-hand side gets his push down, and check this out, exactly going to plan. Hog Rider only gets 4 shots on the right-hand side. X-Bowmaster does some damage but comes out behind, and let's go ahead and back things up for a segment I call Alternate Timeline. What would have happened if X-Bowmaster did something very, very small different in this exchange? So again, we're in that same spot. We have the Musketeer going down the left-hand side with the Ice Golem. But what if X-Bowmaster had just used the Goblin Cage and not the Mega Minion? Because Goblin Cage is enough to counter both the Ice Golem and the Musketeer. So check this out. Goblin Cage pops, takes care of Ice Golem, takes care of Musketeer, and now instead of going with the Mega Minion to the left, he drops it to the right. And in this universe, instead of getting 4 hog hits, Jack only gets 2. Now again, this is a very, very close game. Remember those 2 hog hits? They're very important. In this universe, X-Bowmaster ends up on top in that exchange, but in the real universe, he ends up behind by a not insignificant margin. So here we go, we reset, and look at this. X-Bowmaster plays his Miner behind King Tower, even though the Ice Spirit and Skeletons are out of cycle. This is weird for a number of reasons, especially once you see that he throws Goblin Cage leaning left, meaning he's planning to pressure the left-hand side. Miner gets eaten up easily by the Musketeer, and he doesn't get that all-important chip damage. Of course, 64 per shot is no joke. We'll talk about that number again later. So here's a really interesting moment from Jack. You see the Electro-Dragon coming across the bridge, and instead of activating King Tower, Jack, recognizing this is a terrible matchup for him, chooses to just go ahead and stop with the Ice Golem rather than take more damage. He knows if he wins this one, it's probably going to be very, very close. Now on the left-hand side, you see X-Bowmaster try to get fancy here with the Miner, trying to pick up the Skeletons and maybe some of that Inferno Tower burn. but really ends up just, again, not getting more chip damage. We've had a couple exchanges now where we could have gotten 2 or 3 or 4 total shots onto that tower. Now, if you missed that, let's go back one more time, instant replay. Take a look at this. Even though the Hog Rider is already damaged, Expo Master tries to go for the whole pull, going with that late activation or that late pull tornado, and he ends up giving one more hog hit, an accidental giveaway hog hit. That's an important number, 264. We'll come back to it again later. Now, this time, Expo Master puts together the perfect push, right? The Princess Tower is looking at the Royal Giant, and so the Royal Giant tanks for the Miner, and then on the back end, the Miner tanks for the Royal Giant with the Musketeer, and out of all that, now Expo Master roars back into the lead because, again, he has a really great matchup here. He's totally ahead at this moment. And then he goes, again, with the same thing again, Royal Giant left-hand side, and take a look at this. This is where Jack kind of saves the game. A beautiful bit of micro, Ice Spirit and Ice Golem together. Keep that Miner from chipping away at that tower. That's 7 shots that Ice Golem absorbs. Even 2 or 3 of them could have been or would have been a difference maker. We'll talk about that math again later. Now, this poison comes down. This is where Jack knows he has it. He knows all of his damage points. 264 plus 56, 1 hog hit and 1 beautiful snowball to knock everything out of the way is enough to put this tower back in poison range. That's going to be GG, well played, Jack. Now look at Jack's left-hand tower. 411 HP left. That's 2 hog hits from those 2 earlier that he could have saved in the alternate universe, or that's stopping that 1 bad tornado pull hog hit and getting 3 shots from a Miner. And there's all that Miner chip that Expo Master didn't get on tower. So what happened here? Well, he made some mistakes because he got a bit nervous, and Jack's really good at hog. Now, this is where coaches earn their money. Look at both players. Those arrows indicating something very important. Both players given a bit of a grin. Why? Because they both just decided to run it back. And Expo Master's coach during the break said, hey man, don't be so aggressive. You know the matchup. Just play it smart. And he gave him one little tip that we're going to see in a couple of minutes here. So this game opens up pretty much the exact same way as the first, or at least very close, except that Jack doesn't have Hog Rider directly in cycle, has to cycle a couple of more cards. But same thing happens to start things out, and you see Expo Master activate King, and you see Jack kind of settle in. He knows it's probably the same matchup or a similar matchup, and he got away with one last game. This time, though, Expo Master does not do what he did in the first game. He makes an adjustment. And you saw that X, he did not go Royal Giant behind King Tower and try to pressure opposite lane when he knew he couldn't be punished. That didn't work the first time, so don't do the same thing again. Instead, he goes Electro-Dragon, and this is a nice little fancy bit of footwork here. Throws down the Miner with the bar barrel to counter the Musketeer and the skeletons he knew would defend the Muskie. And Jack makes a different choice in this case. As you can see, because it's early in the game, he goes for the King Tower. He knows that that Miner could have been a big problem last game. The support of that King Tower activation will really help a lot. And now you see this big shrug and sigh from Jack because he knows Expo Master has a much better cycle and a much better handle on the matchup, picking it up with the Goblin Cage. And look at that, top of the screen, Musketeer comes down and Expo Master pulls it to the opposite lane. That was the bit of advice that his coach gave him was, hey, if he muskies into you, go ahead, pull him opposite lane. Oh yeah, by the way, once you do that, bar barrel, 2 elixir will counter the Ice Golem and the Musketeer. That's a 2 for 6 trade. And now you see Expo Master totally feeling it. The slight adjustments from game 2 to game 3, they're running the exact same matchup, but Expo Master first time kind of blinked, got too aggressive, made some mistakes, knew he was against one of the best hog players in the world, and we're just going to kind of speed through the rest of this. Everything else here is just exactly how this matchup should be played, right? He's getting another Royal Giant down, just keeping the pressure on, not letting Jack get into any sort of good rhythm, gets the E-Drag behind, Miner up front, uses the NATO to pull stuff together. This is picture perfect, exactly how they planned it. But what's brilliant here is the recovery from Expo Master. Game 1, he got nervous, he made some mistakes, got too aggressive. Game 2, he took all those mistakes, right? the getting too aggressive early, not getting the minor chip, some sloppy defense, and he fixed them, came back for a big win, and of course went on to win a Game 3 King of the Hill battle against Jack to take the overall match victory. Guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this edition of Inside the Play. For more, hit subscribe, watch the other videos from Inside the Play. I'm Rich Slayton. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.